Arizona Cardinals, 35. It's the West and the East. Philadelphia Eagles, 31. Cardinals move to 4-12. Eagles fall to 11-5. And this game may have blown the NFC East for the Eagles. It was supposed to be an easy finish to the season for the Eagles after a grind in the middle of the year. They were going to go Giants, Cardinals, Giants. But the Cardinals go in and just really dominate offensively. It wasn't the entire game because the Eagles got up 21-6, very similar to their Giants game on Christmas Day, where they get up early and kind of let the underdog back in. They eventually stamped it out as far as the Giants game goes. They won in the end, but they made it really close. But dude, Arizona did not stop in this game. Offensively, they finished with 449 yards, 221 on the ground. Eagles had no answers defensively for the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, I mean, we were saying you probably weren't going to learn anything about Philadelphia towards the end of the season because of those games they were facing. Now, that was assuming that they were going to win all of those games. Yeah. You do learn something if you can't even manage to beat a team like the Giants or Arizona, which is actually what ended up happening. So, and remember, in this game, or as part of this, like Philadelphia's up big, they had a 98-yard interception return for a touchdown.
Miscommunication. Kyler Murray kind of chucks it up. Sidney Brown picks it off.
And a great return by Sidney Brown. Like an incredible return. He was heading down the sideline. You're like, there's no way he brings this all the way back and makes just a bunch of really nice moves with the ball to ends up getting it in. Yeah, miscommunication with Michael Wilson, but what a return that was. But that's in there for Philadelphia, is this crazy game-flipping play where they get a 98-yard touchdown going in the opposite direction. And they still couldn't get it done. Yeah,
what did we learn about Philadelphia? I mean, their defense is
bad,
really bad right now. To the point where they had Matt Patricia start calling plays a couple weeks ago.
You're telling me that didn't fix it?
Did not. Don't have him call the offensive plays either.
Maybe you should call both at the same time. Maybe that's what's missing.
I think you may have sent me a message, or Ben. Was it Ben? Yeah, Ben said maybe this saved Kyler Murray's starting gig with Arizona, because we had talked about it through that lens as an Arizona storyline. Kyler Murray hadn't played well the last few weeks. This has been his best game. But again, I just don't know how much you blame Philadelphia and just no pass rush.
Yeah.
Especially compared to what they had been doing.
This is the thing.
And the back seven has just been a disaster these last few weeks, other than a random pick six.
Right. The back seven has been bad. They're banged up. That makes some sense, but I don't know how much of this is like which is driving this, or they're both happening at the same time. But the pass rush has really dried up for Philadelphia, certainly relative to earlier in the season. Josh Sweat, like you can draw a line in his season from like first half, second half, and it's night and day. He was incredibly productive in the first half, has not been in the second half whatsoever. Jalen Carter, who looked like Aaron Donald for the first half of the season, still looks pretty good. But again, you can draw a pretty distinct line from like week 1 to 8 for him. And it's the same line, actually. It's like if you drew a line.
Since the Bills game.
That I would draw the line after Washington. First Washington game, week 8. Same line for him and for Josh Sweat, two totally different players. So the two guys that have been driving that pass rush for Philadelphia in the first half of the year have simply not been in the second half. And, it's not universal in that direction. Like Hassan Reddick has probably been better in the second half of the year than the first, but they haven't had the same volume of pressure that they had earlier in the year, and the secondary is worse. So now a defense that was already struggling is just hemorrhaging plays.
One other note to back that up, Jalen Carter, he's got a couple quick wins that weren't pressures, but he had 9 pressures in his first game, his NFL debut, Jalen Carter.
Right.
He had 9. He has 7 in the last 5 weeks right now, since the Chiefs game, I believe it is, or Buffalo game. And then, run defense too.
Yeah.
I mean, they just could not stop Arizona.
I mean, Arizona averaged 5.8 yards per attempt between all of their rushes in this game. That was the game. Like Philadelphia could not stop that. When Arizona needed it right at the end, they were able to put it together on the ground and pound the ball in. The run game was absolutely a huge factor.
We've seen the Eagles play this game a couple times this year against the Commanders too, against 4-win teams, right? Against the Commanders where they were up and the Commanders came back and it's back and forth. And again, Eagles have been playing with fire all season, just from a point differential standpoint. They didn't feel as dominant as previous seasons. We couldn't necessarily put our finger on it offensively. The defense wasn't as good as last year, but not this level of disaster as they've been the last few weeks. The big plays that they've given up are just, as I mentioned, 440 plus yards by Arizona. But again, they're up. They go up in the fourth quarter, 28-21. Arizona comes back to tie it. Eagles go up again, 31-28, and they have 2:30 to stop Arizona, right? And essentially secure the opportunity to win the NFC East with a win against the Giants next week, right? To just set yourself up from that, and they couldn't do it. James Conner runs in for the game-winning 2-yard touchdown. Jalen Hurts, Hail Mary, gets picked off to end the game, and that was it, man. And the Eagles are looking – here's what's happening. The Eagles are looking at the 5 seed now and probably going to the NFC South winner, who's likely Tampa Bay. And I know Tampa Bay, we'll talk about them in a second here. They're coming off a tough one against New Orleans where their offense looked atrocious in the first half of the game. But, man, the way Tampa Bay had been playing offensively the last few weeks, if they get Philly coming into town, like they could win that game. We're talking about Tampa being able to beat the Eagles right now in a playoff game. They played back in week 3 and it wasn't even a game because Philly was just a much better team at that time.
That's definitely a potential reality. It's also still good news for Philly in terms of, hey, okay, you just blew the division probably, and now you're looking at a wild card spot. On the other hand, you do get the NFC South team as things stand. So, you should still progress in that game, even though it's one you could lose because you're losing against bad teams right now.
Any game, I don't know if any game is fun for the Eagles right now.
One element I think that's interesting about Philadelphia is in the last 2 weeks, I think, they have now shown 2 completely different variants of things they can do off the tush-push play, right? So they had just been unstoppable with that all the way through the year, and then they showed the wide pitch play off the back instead, the fake. We're going to fake the push play up the middle, and in fact, we're going to pitch it around the edge, and that's how we're going to get the first down. And then in this game, they faked the push play up the middle, faked the pitch play, and instead had the pitch player, throw the ball over the top and picked it up that way. So they've now shown 2 different variants off the back of that push play before the playoffs to just sort of put in defenses' minds, hey, if you even think about overplaying the push play up the middle, we are going to punish you in different ways with this. I think that's an interesting thing to put on tape, and I think very deliberate by Philadelphia to just say we are going to ensure that this play is unstoppable in the postseason.
Yeah, I think their offense has been better overall the last few weeks.
It's certainly the better side of the ball at the moment.
Yeah, it really is. Their linebackers had shown weakness. It started really, for me, the Niners game, but I thought it was just they ran into the Niners, who are this juggernaut, who attack second-level defenders really well. But I'm concerned about all of the injuries and just not great play from Eagles linebackers, including like Shaquille Leonard was out there. They don't have a whole lot of answers, run game or pass game in this one. James Conner with a big game. He had the game-winning touchdown, 26 carries for 128 yards. And again, Arizona just did whatever they wanted offensively after a slow start.